All right, let's just dive right in. We all walk around pretty much assuming that the world we see is, well, solid. It's predictable, and it's something totally separate from us. But what if that whole model is just outdated? Today, we're going to explore a pretty radical idea that mixes ancient mysticism with some mind-bending quantum physics. The big takeaway? Reality isn't what it seems. And you, well, you play a much bigger role in it than you could possibly imagine.
So let's start with this. Just let that question sink in for a second. It completely flips our most basic assumption on its head, doesn't it? It suggests that your identity, isn't some permanent thing. It's more like a temporary pattern, a stabilized tension in this massive, infinite field. And if that's even a little bit true, it changes literally everything about how we look at our lives, our potential, and our place in the whole universe.
The material we're digging into today comes from some pretty fascinating sources. On one side, you've got this really deep, kind of esoteric philosophy, filled with sacred geometry and cosmic ideas. And on the other, there's a super practical, step-by-step guide for changing your life. Our goal here is to stitch them together into a user's guide for reality itself.
Okay, so let's start with the big theory, the foundation. The first huge idea you have to wrap your head around is that reality isn't a thing. It's not a static object. It's a dynamic, ongoing process, a kind of delicate balancing act.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. We tend to think of these as complete opposites, right? Existence versus non-existence, light versus dark. But this framework says, no. They're fundamental partners. It suggests that what we call reality is actually the stabilized tension that comes from the constant dance between them. It's not a thing, it's a vibration, it's a frequency.
And this metaphor just nails it. Think of a flute. Where does the music come from? Not from the solid parts of the flute, right? It comes from the empty space inside. The structure, that's the non-existence, combines with the breath, which is the life force, and the hollow space, which is awareness. Put them all together and you get music. You get experience. Your body is the instrument and life is the music playing through you.
So let's build on that. If reality is this vibration, this huge field of potential, then who or what is influencing it? This is where things get really cool, because this is the bridge from that abstract philosophy right into the world of modern physics.
So the key ingredient turns out to be our perception. The source material talks a lot about this idea of disciplined perception. And it's not just about what you see with your eyes. It's about your awareness itself, your ability to see through all the noise, the illusions out there, and maybe more importantly, the delusions we tell ourselves. This is a huge hint that our consciousness is the critical tool here.
And you know what's wild? Science gives us this startling parallel. You've probably heard of the double slit experiment. At the quantum level, tiny particles like electrons, they exist as a wave of all possibilities at once until you look at them. The moment an observer measures it, that whole wave of potential collapses into one single definite particle. And our sources say, hey, that's a perfect metaphor for reality. Your conscious observation plays a role in collapsing the infinite wave of potential into the concrete reality you actually experience.
And to really drive this point home, just think about what you're actually made of. We feel so solid, right? But our atoms are 99.999% empty space. It's an amazing analogy. If an atom was the size of a giant football stadium, all the actual matter would be like a tiny piece sitting in the center. The rest isn't empty in a void sense. It's a buzzing field of energy and potential. You are not a solid object. You are a walking, talking field of possibilities.
Okay, so if we are these fields of potential and we're interacting with a bigger quantum field, how do we communicate with it? What's the language that this field actually understands? Well, according to our sources, the answer is your electromagnetic signature. Every single moment, you are broadcasting a frequency. Think of it this way. Your thoughts create an electrical charge. They send out the request. But your feelings create a magnetic charge, which is literally thousands of times stronger. And that's what draws experiences back to you.
And that brings us to the absolute core formula of this whole thing. It is not enough to just think happy thoughts. The quantum field responds to coherence, to a clear signal. When you combine a really clear intention, a specific thought, with an elevated emotion like gratitude or joy, you're uniting those electrical and magnetic signals. You create this powerful, coherent broadcast that the field can finally understand and respond to. That alignment, that is what creates a quantum event.
So that's the theory. Awesome, right? But how do we actually put it into practice? Let's get to the actionable part. a 4-step protocol for consciously communicating with this field of potential.
Here they are, the 4 steps. First, you have to disconnect from your current reality, who you've been. Second, you choose a new potential from that infinite field. Third, and this one is absolutely critical, you generate the feeling of that future right here in the present. And finally, you let go and trust the process.
Let's really zero in on step 3, because this is the secret sauce. The field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being. Your job is to generate the feeling of your future before it happens. Gratitude is the ultimate creative state. Why? Because you can only be grateful for something you believe you already have. When you feel gratitude for a future that hasn't arrived yet, your body and the quantum field get the signal that it's already here.
And that leads perfectly into the final step, release. Once you've broadcast that clear, powerful signal, your job is to get out of the way. If you start stressing about how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, you're introducing doubt and you're right back to your old frequency. You have to trust that a greater intelligence is on the job now, arranging things, people, and synchronicities in ways your logical mind could never, ever come up with.
Now for our last section, let's zoom all the way out. Because while this protocol is amazing for creating specific things in your life, the sources suggest that's really just the beginning. The real point of all this is to shift our entire perspective on why we're even here.
I mean, this quote just reframes the whole thing so beautifully. It suggests this isn't just about personal gain. We are a part of the universe experiencing itself through us. Every new creation we make, every elevated emotion we feel, it actually enriches the entire field. It's not about winning or losing, it's about adding to the grand unfolding of consciousness.
And so we end here, turning this whole explainer right back on you. In the end, it all comes down to self-awareness. It's not about some big eye in the sky watching you. It's about you becoming the conscious observer of your own inner world, your thoughts, your feelings, your automatic reactions. Because once you truly start watching yourself, the old illusions lose their power, and you finally begin to create from a place of choice.